Hey guys, and welcome to your 2-Minute Money Manager. I'm your host, Stacy Johnson, and this answer is brought to you by MoneyTalksNews.com, serving up the best in personal finance news and advice since 1991. Now, here's today's question. It comes to us from John. John says, what's the difference between the FICO score and the VantageScore? Okay, John, let's talk about this. In fact, let me give you a brief history of credit scores. It's kind of interesting. Imagine a world in which every time you applied for credit, someone with expertise had to personally go through your entire credit history and make a subjective judgment about whether you deserved a car loan or a credit card. Sounds pretty cumbersome, huh? Well, that's the way the credit world worked until the 1950s. That's when a couple of guys, Bill Fair and Earl Isaac, came up with a brand new idea. Use an automated formula to distill all that credit information into a single, simple number. Voila! Now you don't need expertise or experience to determine creditworthiness. You just run your formula and a chimpanzee can grant credit. Bill and Earl took their idea, created a company called Fair Isaac, and started selling their new system called FICO scoring to lenders. Now, it took a couple of decades to gain widespread acceptance, but eventually their credit score simplified the business of lending and made them a ton of money. Now we've learned a little bit about where credit scores originated. Let's get back to John's question. Namely, what's the difference between the FICO score and a VantageScore? Well, now that you understand how lucrative credit scoring is, it should come as no surprise that other companies wanted in on the action. So, in 2006, the three major credit reporting agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, got together and launched what's called the Vantage Credit Score. They began providing their new score to websites like Credit Karma, Credit Sesame, NerdWallet, and those sites began giving it away for free to attract subscribers. So, what's the difference between these scores, the FICO and the Vantage? Well, they measure the same thing, your ability to repay a loan, and they do it essentially the same way by examining things like your payment history, your level of debt, the type of credit you have, and how much of it you're using. Both of their most recent models yield a range from a low of 300 to a perfect 850. But there is one major difference. The FICO score is used by way more lenders than any other score. Despite the fact that VantageScore has now been around for a while, the FICO score is still, by far, the most widely used credit score. So if you want to see the score that your lender is most likely to actually use, you're going to want to see your FICO score. Now, free credit scores, as I mentioned, it's really easy to get a free credit score, and it's easy to get a free Vantage score by going to any number of websites. I mentioned a few of them a minute ago. In the past, free FICO scores were much harder to find. So basically, if you wanted a free score, you almost had to go to one of those websites and get a Vantage score. Now, the law does require lenders to furnish a FICO score if you're turned down for credit or in certain other conditions. But until relatively recently, if you wanted to see your FICO score, you had to pay for it. These days, though, finding a free FICO score is simple. Lots of banks and credit card companies offer them up for nothing. Sometimes even when you're not a customer. Discover, for example, does that. Now, I can look at my credit score free every month from at least 3 different sources. The 2 credit card companies that I use and the bank that I use. Now, if you can't find a free FICO score, then go to MoneyTalksNews.com and do a search for free FICO score, because we've written about this stuff before, and we're going to hook you right up. Bottom line, John, while there are subtle differences between FICO and VantageScore credit scores, the real difference is the FICO score is the one most lenders use. Just keeping an eye on your credit? Hey, no problem. Use the VantageScore, it's fine. But if you're about to borrow big, let's say you're about to get a mortgage, I'd recommend tracking your FICO score. Hope that answers your question, John. Now, what about you folks? You got a question of your own to ask? Then do what John did. Simply hit reply to any of your Money Talks email newsletters and fire away. I can't answer every question, of course, but I will do my best. And if you're not getting our newsletter, well, you got to fix that right now. Go to MoneyTalksNews.com and subscribe. It doesn't cost a dime, takes 5 seconds, and it absolutely positively is going to make you richer. What's not to like? I'm Stacy Johnson. I'll see you right here next time.